One of the questions that comes up time and time again, or rather one of the topics that comes up time and time again, is academic writing. Now, this is something that a huge number of PhD students and academics in general struggle with. But it's also one of the things that's most important, because all academics live to get published, and publishing means you have to write. So it's one of those things that is pretty much unavoidable, but it's also one of those things that causes a huge amount of stress. Now, a lot of the writing advice which is out there focuses on some variation on just getting words down, getting something on the page, and then figuring out what to do with it later on. Now, this does help to get over the initial block, but it doesn't help you in terms of producing actually anything publishable or submittable for a thesis. And if you're just putting words down on the page without any understanding of how to structure an argument, or how to make the point that you want to make, then you're leading into trouble. So in the next few videos, I'm going to focus exclusively on writing and some very simple tricks or ways of thinking about writing that make quite a big difference. And I'll start with one example, being in terms of writing about literature. So a lot of the time people think of the literature in terms of a bunch of stuff that people have said, which you then have to summarize in some way. And then the literature review goes something like, Smith says that this thing is the case, and then you have another paragraph that says Jones said this other thing, but there's no logical link between the two things. And so you end up with this very, very long, very tedious literature review that nobody likes writing and nobody likes reading. But if you think of it in a different way, if you think of the literature instead of being just something that somebody has published that you have to summarize, think about what the literature is responding to. And the literature responds to basically two things. One is the underlying research problem or question that they're interested in, and the other is other literature in the field. So the way that they approach the problem is within the context of what has already been done or what has already been said. And if instead of focusing on summarizing individual papers, you look at what has happened in the field over the last however many years, so the context in which the work exists, and also what are the problems that people are working on. So for example, if you state a long-standing problem in the field has been, and then you say whatever the problem is, then you say, for example, the first major attempt to solve this problem was done by Smith, who used this technique, then Smith's work fits into a context. And then you can say what influence that had on the field. So you can say this sparked an intense debate, etc., etc. So everything then fits within a context. And if you understand this kind of structure, then you realize that all literature reviews are pretty much the same. You know, the narrative is pretty much the same, it's just that the details vary. And you can put together a literature review pretty quickly without stressing about having this mountains of papers, which you then have to try and summarize all of them. All of them fit within usually quite simple narratives. Obviously there's more to it, but I'll give more details in another video.